Many of you surely remember this wonderful cover of this fantastic, without exaggeration, album that summed up the work of the Liverpool Fab Four with such a bullet point. Some of you even remember that the second side begins with the song Here Comes the Sun, one of the best songs of George Harrison, and it's worth mentioning. First, it is a hymn to the sun, no less, and second, according to materials from various sources, it was the first time the moog was used by them. But there is something also more important. We all know about George Harrison's passion for Indian music, playing the sitar. And Indian music implies complicated rhythmic structures. In this song there is a piece with 7.5 note value, or 15 of 16ths. What did he want? To confuse Ringo's there? Perhaps. But Ringo, as we know, came out of the situation with honor and played perfectly.
That's one of those Indian tricks.
Even Ringo confirms that this is an Indian story. But what can we say about the tuning? Why am I interested in this question? Because when I want to play along with the Beatles with my guitar, there is a strong dissonance. We can hear that the track was recorded in a different frequency, but why? For what reason and on which frequency? So I decided to get down to bedrock and make my own little research. I invite you to take part in it. So this guitar is tuned to the usual frequency 440 Hz. I put the capoduster to the 7th fret. In this position we get A major. Let's check with the record. It's obvious that the song is out of this musical tuning. It makes us a little sick to hear, so I continue searching. Of course, the first thing I came across was 432 Hz frequency for hour. Just for information, nowadays we used to hear music with 440 Hz for hour. But it wasn't always that way, only after World War. Many centuries in a row before there was alternative tuning, so-called Vedis tuning in use, which was based on 432 Hz for hour. Of course I changed tune to my guitar, tried to play again. See what I did. I found video with tuning to 432 Hz. And now I'm adjusting to try in this frequency. I put the capoduster at 7th fret and start playing along with the record in the usual position. And we definitely hear the difference. I think it's not necessary to continue. Of course, this frequency turned out to be completely useless in this case, and it sounds like we went even farther from original. Now it sounds completely unbearable. And I went to dig further, and I found this table, where a note is marked as 852 Hz, with the remark return to spiritual order, and I thought, it sounds like George. I retuned the guitar again and see what happened. In order to make the frequency 852 Hz, I needed a tone generator, and this is the simplest thing that sounds like this. I'll make it louder, and we have a frequency that we will now tune to. Here it is. We set up 852. So we have fallen very much. I mean, if we take 440 and multiply by 2, we will get 880, and now we made 852, it's almost 30 Hz down. So we will raise the capoduster now at 8th fret instead of 7th, and see what we have. This is a unique find in my opinion. comes the sun, I say it's alright. As you can see, this is a completely different sound pattern, and all the settings in this series are absolutely not the same as our usual notes. This structure we can observe, for example, in nature, when we see a snail shell, absolutely the same shape. This is Fibonacci sequence, and that sound pattern based on it. It's believed that the frequencies of this sound scale are much more pleasant for the human ear, softer, easier to perceive, even more healthy. There are a lot of tracks on YouTube that have been recorded in the frequency of 440 and then in 432. Such classics like Rachmaninoff, Tchaikovsky, you can hear the difference, how much more pleasant it really is. We can say that this frequency in music is like the golden ratio, applicable to everything. Construction, production of Stradivari violins. This is the ideal figure with the help of which you can build something divine. Similarly, musical scale is a fractal geometry. A fractal is an object that divides itself myriad times, and the same structure remains after each time when you zoom in. There is such a science called cymatics. You can find a lot of information about it in the web. This is the science of sound's image. Sugar is poured onto the plate, connected to the oscillator, and certain frequencies are turned on, and we see these beautiful images. Images in 432 Hz are better and smoother than in 440. 440 Hz slightly damaged, and correspondingly it affects us little incorrectly too. Maybe that's what George Harrison wanted to share with us.